Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 things that would happen if everyone only had one child.
Number 10. There'd be a massive gender imbalance. It's an unfortunate fact that in many countries, women are considered second-class citizens. They can't work, can't drive, have no say in who they marry, suffer economic setbacks, or just generally have to put up with guys acting like douches. Most importantly, they are considered less valuable than men for jobs like agriculture and industry, creating a world where every couple is only allowed one child and girl babies would find themselves disappearing at a horrifying rate. We know this because this is exactly what happened in China. In the Middle Kingdom, women are expected to marry and then go on to care for their husband's parents. They're not expected to make money and support their families, so poor rural Chinese couples started aborting, killing, or abandoning baby girls. The eventual result was a population with 30 million more men than women, and areas so devoid of girls they resemble a dystopian sausage party. Of course, Chinese society is unique. Some countries, likely in the West, might turn out to value girls more than boys. But globally, we hate to say it, but it's baby girls who get the short end of the stick, leaving us with way too many dudes for our planet to sustain. And while we're on the subject, number 9, kidnapping and human trafficking would rise. Remember when you were 14 and insecure and thought that no girl would ever want to have sex with you? In a world with a gigantic gender imbalance, that's how millions and millions of grown men would feel all their lives. Unfortunately, young, insecure, angry men aren't known for their restraint. Faced with a dearth of opportunities for love, they may well embark on a crusade of raping and kidnapping. Before you descend on the comments to accuse us of having an anti-man agenda or whatever, note that we're drawing this conclusion from research into China's one-child policy. In 2016, CNN revealed a massive, terrifying network of human traffickers who snatch poor girls from Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos and sell them into marriage with sex-starved Chinese men. The report concluded that this was a direct result of the one-child policy. This isn't a problem unique to China. Unloved men all over the world would have a tendency to blame their ill fortune with girls on the girls themselves. Combine that with a human mentality that craves sex, and it's easy to see how trafficking would skyrocket across a gender-imbalanced globe. Number 8. A massive increase in abortions. If you're someone who thinks abortion is a bad thing, then you're not going to like this next one. A global one-child policy would lead to an unprecedented number of abortions being performed across the planet. As in China, almost all of these abortions would target baby girls. Since ultrasound scans became cheap and easily accessible, parents in places like China, India, and Saudi Arabia have aborted enough baby girls to populate a vast country. In 1990, the Indian economist Amartya Sen estimated the number at 100 million worldwide, and that's without the impetus of a one-child policy outside of China. Apply it globally, and tens of millions of baby girls would be terminated every single year. Even in countries where boys aren't favored over girls, the number of abortions would inevitably rise. Sick children, disabled children, all would likely be aborted in this not-so-brave new world. We haven't even gotten to forced abortions yet. If this policy were truly global and really implemented, governments would have to ensure no couple had a second child. That would mean aborting any children accidentally conceived. If the religious think it's bad now, a one-child policy world would see abortion scale heights that even the most leftist liberal would shudder to contemplate. Number 7. Empowering women. After 3 entries demonstrating how unbelievably bad this would be for women, here's the silver lining for the sisterhood. In China's richer urban centers, the one-child policy was far from a disaster for girls. In fact, it may have had the opposite effect. Educated Chinese women today are more empowered than at any other point in history. The reasons for this are brutally simple. With far fewer women around, men have to compete extra hard for a mate. This means women can kick back in the knowledge that they can get married at pretty much any point in life and have their pick of the bunch while they're at it. In China, this has translated to a generation of educated women who are putting their careers and independence first and leaving off settling down until they're much older. For middle-class women in developing countries, a massive surplus of men could paradoxically give them greater freedom than their mums and grandmas could have ever dreamed of. Again, we should stress this upside will only benefit comparatively richer and better educated women living in urban areas, but it's still not something to be scoffed at. Number 6. Creating a generation of little emperors. We all know someone who likes to go on about how entitled today's kids can be, and what special snowflakes they all are. Oh boy, if that guy could only see the future generation a one-child policy would bring. There's research from China that indicates a generation born without siblings can wind up being so snowflakey they make millennials look like a burning ball of ambitious white-hot fire. The Chinese know them as little emperors. The idea is that all of them suffer only child syndrome. Their parents have doted on them, given them everything they ever wanted, and now they're ill-equipped to deal with life in the real world. While the perception is exaggerated, there's a snippet of truth behind it all. A study by Australian economists, reported by NPR, showed that the Little Emperor generation was more risk-averse, less optimistic, and less entrepreneurial than preceding generations. In a world that relies on dynamic ideas and innovation to spur its economy onwards, that's a massive problem. It's impossible to calculate what effects a generation like this would have on the planet, but if you believe entitled millennials are dragging the country down, then a global generation of little emperors is probably going to feel like the apocalypse. Number 5. A massive increase in government bureaucracy. Let's say the world took this one-child policy very seriously. That would mean rewriting a lot of laws and likely amending the American Constitution to make it more workable. But it's one thing declaring something law, it's another enforcing it. Just ask China. At the height of their one-child policy, the state was forced to employ 500,000 people full-time and 85 million people half-time to ensure no one broke the one-child limit. That's the equivalent of the entire populations of France and Taiwan combined, just monitoring birth rates. It gets crazier. In a typical Chinese village of 500, the state was forced to employ 16 staff purely to monitor local couples. In other words, monitoring this policy in a single country required expanding the state's role massively. For anyone living in a relatively small state country, the shock would be jarring in the extreme. Even for those used to living in statist countries, the sheer volume of bureaucracy required would be staggering. For example, many in the EU like to complain about the crazy number of bureaucrats employed by Brussels. That number currently sits at around 46,000. That's less than 0.1% of the number of bureaucrats China required to police its one-child policy. Number 4. Brutal punishments. While we're on the subject of enforcement, do you have any idea how hard it is to convince a couple to stop after just one child? I'll tell you, it's really, really hard. The sort of punishments the state would have to be prepared to dole out to those who broke the limit would be brutal in the extreme. Just the most basic laws required to make the policy work would likely classify as cruel and unusual punishment. In China, women who became pregnant a second time were made to undergo forced abortions. While this is brutal, there would be few practical alternatives. On top of that, legislators would feel the need to send out a harsh message. When it wanted to put people off raising families, Beijing brought in compulsory sterilization for those who violated the one-child policy. They hit other couples with massive fines. Property was confiscated, and even then, some couples still risked popping out an extra baby. If all of this sounds barbaric, well, that's because it is, but other governments wouldn't be able to do much better if they were serious about enforcement. The worst regimes would probably bring in truly horrific punishments like torture and execution for violators. Essentially, wanting to become a mother would make you into a wanted criminal. Number 3. Chaos in the social system. Have you ever heard of the 4-2-1 problem? It's something China has been struggling to cope with for a while now. Basically, a state provides for its elderly by ensuring there are more workers than those out of work. Either the workers themselves take care of their elderly relatives, as was traditionally the case in China, or their taxes go towards pensions and housing for the elderly. It's how the entire 20th century social system works. In a one-child world, though, things get trickier. This is where the problem comes in. Instead of having a working family to provide for an elderly grandparent, China is increasingly looking at a future where one worker is expected to provide for 2 parents and 4 grandparents, hence 4-2-1. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that this poses a massive problem. As a result, there's a danger that living standards will crash for the workers of the future. In Western societies, this would manifest with workers having to work longer hours and more years to keep the elderly population afloat. Pensioners, in turn, would see their pensions shrink and their life become harder. Number 2. A more sustainable world. So a one-child policy can cause economic and social chaos. But can it also be a good thing? Some research suggests that it could be. In 2014, a team of researchers showed that a moderately low birth rate can lead to an economic boom for wealthier countries. Unfortunately, a strict one-child policy chucks out the moderately part of that sentence. Yet, there are still advantages. Our planet is getting crazy crowded. We're at a stage right now where it's like we're in the black hole of Calcutta. Only instead of screaming, "Help, we're suffocating in here!" we're content to just let the world keep on shoving more and more people into our tiny living space. This is inevitably going to lead to major societal changes at some point. A global one-child policy could put the brakes on this hard. In China alone, one generation of child laws stopped 300 million extra people from being born. Multiply that by the current population of the world, and we could save ourselves around 2 billion extra mouths to feed. Number 1. Eventual extinction. And now it's time to descend into the delightful depths of reductio ad absurdio for this final entry. Given that we've hypothetically constructed a world where every single government has agreed to monitor a strict one-child policy, let's follow it down the road for a few generations. First, we'd see global population growth slow dramatically. Then it would level out. Then it would start to contract, slowly at first, but then faster and faster and faster. Flash forward some 33 generations, and humans would have bred ourselves out of existence. Think about it. If each couple can only have one child, that's 2 people who will grow old and die, leaving only one replacement human behind. That kid will then hook up with another only child and have a single child with her. Then they'll both die and leave only one replacement. From an initial 2 couples, 4 people, we've already bred ourselves down to a single replacement. Eventually, the last couple would have one child who would have no one to mate with and would die without passing on his or her genes. The human race would be forever lost. Incredibly, not everyone thinks that this is a bad idea. There's even a group called the Voluntary Human Extinction Movement who believe it's our duty to stop reproducing and kill our species. If you're watching this video in a Children of Men style hellscape many years in the future, don't say we didn't warn you.
So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, do check out some of our other videos that are over there on the right, and thank you for watching.